Hi, welcome to the TSG Multimedia video podcast for October 1st, 2015. This is John sitting with
Dan?
and we are looking at a very black HO scale model.
Yeah, this is a straight out of the box, undecorated Athearn Blue Box SD40-2
All right.
that I've done nothing to so far.
Yeah, hold on. I'm going to put on my psychic hat. I see Canon fans in the future for this
Oh,
model.
yeah, you better believe it. Well, I think, I know on Dan's models I've had, I think two SD40-2s. One I had at a Canadian Pacific and a Santa Fe
Okay.
that were both, done up the way I do them, and they don't look like this anymore.
Yeah. I don't think anything you have looks like this.
No.
Except this one.
Yeah, well, this is one I haven't really worked on, and actually, the reason I brought it on is because we had, I think someone on Facebook messaged us about milling an Athearn frame without using a milling machine,
Okay.
which makes sense because I think probably most modelers don't have a milling machine. I don't have a milling machine. I mean,
I don't know anybody who has a milling machine.
yeah, I mean, it's a fairly expensive thing, and you have to have room for it, and you have to know what you're doing to use it. So, I mean, most people probably don't have that. Now, I don't know exactly what our person who asked the question was trying to accomplish, but I'm just going to show you what I do to these things.
Do you mill these things all the time?
Well, a little bit. I mean,
okay.
not a lot. They're really, because here, let's take the shell off, and now this one happens to already have a CAN motor installed.
Did you upgrade that or?
No, this one I got that way. I
Oh.
got this chassis somehow, and it has a GSB motor in it. Other than that, it's pretty much stock. There isn't a lot of, I mean, all the metal is down here on these old blue boxes.
Yeah, I'm noticing
So-
that there's not a lot of stuff you would need to mill.
Yeah,
but
so I mean,
can't tell.
I know some people like to mill a space in the fuel tank area for a speaker, but I don't want to do that because honestly, this is all your weight right here.
Yeah.
And if you cut that, you're going to lose,
It'll have no pulling power, right?
Right. And I mean, there's plenty of room in a blue box shell to put a speaker up in the shell, and that actually sounds really good. That's the way I do mine. So I'm not going to do that. But what I do to these things is I get rid of all this cast on fuel tank detail.
Yeah.
And I also, this fuel tank doesn't have it so much, but sometimes they have a little ridge on the side left over from whatever process when they make it.
Uh-huh.
And also, I like to true up the ends because the ends of the fuel tank kind of slant a little bit, and they actually should be straight up and down. So I will do that.
Okay.
I'll true them up. Doing this kind of thing, you basically have a few basic tools you can use. Motor tool.
That makes a lot of
with
sense.
the right attachment.
Right? Grinder type stuff.
Yeah. Hacksaw. Probably won't need that for this because there isn't that much material to trim away, but sometimes if you're doing a lot of trimming on a frame, hacksaw works well. And a file or a set of files.
Don't want to cut yourself on your newly cut stuff, right?
Right. And sometimes, I mean, you usually end up, at least at the end, especially if it's part that's going to be seen, you're probably going to want to use files and maybe even some sandpaper for final finishing on it, so you can smooth it out and everything, make it nice.
Yeah.
But that's pretty much it. Now, I suppose if you had a drill press and you had some kind of a bit on there that could cut metal, but not so much like a drill, but more like some kind of cutter attachment, you might be able to use that to mill it too.
You've never done that, though?
I've never done that. I don't have a drill press either, so I don't really have any experience with that. But that might be another option.
Sometimes I feel depressed. Is that the same?
Yeah, it could be. Depends if you do it and it doesn't work right, you might get depressed.
Yeah.
But anyway, so I probably won't be using the hacksaw, but I will be using the files and the motor tool for this. Okay, so one thing that's important before doing any cutting on a mechanism is to try to remove as many moving parts as possible because you don't want to get metal shavings in the gears or in the motor.
And that would happen.
Yeah. So I'm going to remove the trucks. I'll take the side frame off here to make it a little easier. Just pry this cover off, and then this will come out.
It's like the whole thing just kind of collapsed.
Yeah, and I can take this off.
Was it just like a clip that the power goes?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, so I can take the truck off, set it aside, and I do the same thing with the other end. Oops. It's okay if it shoots across the room as long as you find it later. Yeah, I'll end up taking all this off anyway because I don't use these factory clips or that kind of thing when I finally end up installing sound and everything in it.
That's all usually soldered, huh?
Yeah. So that doesn't so much matter. Now, if this was a stock motor, I'd pull it out, but because this is an aftermarket motor and it's already kind of glued in here, I'm going to have to leave it. Now, this is a sealed motor, so it probably wouldn't get anything inside it, but just as a precaution, I'm just going to tape it up. Okay, so I've noticed that on this particular frame, the little pins that stick out to mount it to the shell, this is one of the older style ones that has the side mounting pins, have already been cut off, so that's fine. I don't use those anyway, and that's one of the things I would have done. Another thing I like to do is usually these coupler mounts put the coupler too low, I've found, so they usually need to be filed, and that's something I'll just do with a file, and I'll just keep putting the trucks back on and checking the coupler height by screwing a coupler to it until it's right. It takes a little bit of trial and error, but it's basically just a matter of doing this.
That's such a great noise.
And filing it. It helps if you can have this mounted in something, and that's actually one thing I was going to mention, especially if you're going to use a hacksaw on something like this. If you mount it in a vise or something else that holds it steady, that's really almost essential.
Yeah.
Because you don't want to have it be slipping around while you're trying to cut it with something like that.
That would make using a hacksaw impossible, but also it gets hot.
It gets hot, yeah. Especially if you're grinding with a motor tool, sometimes it'll get hot. And it's just for safety, too. You don't want it to slip, and you don't want to hurt yourself with your tools or something because the part slipped.
Well, at least either that, or if you are going to hurt yourself, at least get it on camera so you can put it up on YouTube.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. But, I mean, if you're going to do something like this and you don't have anything, I just try to hold it steady and just try to keep the file level as level as possible so the coupler doesn't end up cockeyed.
Yeah.
And, it's just a matter of taking a big flat file like this and just going over and over it,
I would imagine probably you want to take a little bit off at a time so you don't go too far.
Right. So I'm not going to really, for the sake of time, I'm not going to do the whole thing right now. But, that's what it involves. It's just filing for that particular piece.
Fair enough.
So probably goes without saying, but, always wear safety glasses when using a tool like this.
What, you don't want to get metal shavings in your eye at high speed?
No, that's really not a good thing. So I'm using one of these fiber reinforced cutoff wheels. I would always recommend using the reinforced cutoff wheels as opposed to, sometimes the motor tools will come with these cutoff wheels that aren't reinforced. I throw those away because
little pieces may fly off, huh?
Well, they just shatter. They shatter and then the little pieces fly off at high speed.
Ugh. It's really bad.
Yeah, I don't even know why they make those. But this has a I don't know if it's fiberglass or what is it is in there, but it's a little mesh that keeps the disc in one piece.
Okay.
So anyway, and this is one of my favorite attachments to use when cutting off little pieces like this. So now that that's mostly off, could probably get it a little more. I don't want to go too far because I might put, big dents in it that I have to fill later.
It's always better to take a little bit off at a time.
Yeah. Of course, the good thing about this is that this part is going to be hard to see anyway.
Right.
So if it's a little bit imperfect, no one's ever going to know the difference. But sometimes you can get it. This file might be, it's a little too big for this. I'm going to have to get some smaller ones.
That looks like the right kind of file.
Yeah, this is a smaller one. It's easier to get in here. And I just keep going over it until I can't see any trace of those unwanted details. The reason I do this is I replace all that stuff with aftermarket stuff that looks better. And, this is just in the way.
Yeah, it's an upgrade.
Yeah. Okay, so now I'm finished with the file, and I've switched to some sandpaper, and all I have here is some 320 grit black sandpaper and a little piece of 040 styrene that I'm using as a kind of makeshift sanding block. I just cut these little pieces of sandpaper and just kind of fold it like that.
Oh, and then your fingers just hold it, huh?
Yeah, and I just hold it in place, and then it makes a nice little kind of a sanding block kind of a thing.
A nice flat edge.
Yeah, so then I just go over this, and it, makes it a little smoother, puts a little bit of a finish on it.
Well, this is really the fine-tuning portion, huh?
Right. And I might go down to eventually go down to 400 grit, which is probably isn't fine as you need to go if you're going to paint it, and prime it and everything.
Yeah, I mean, at that point, you're almost polishing.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you can go, if you were going to do which you wouldn't really do on something like this. I know some airplane modelers, if they're going to do a natural metal finish on a model, they'll go down to 600, even 1,000 grit or something to get all the scratches out. Because some of those paints really show that stuff. But for trains, 400 is usually fine.
Yeah, 1,000 grit sandpaper. It's like rubbing it with regular paper almost.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so like I said before, a lot of times there's a ridge of extra metal running down the side of this tank. This doesn't have it. But it's still got a little bit of a funny shape here. So I'm going to use the flat file and just try to reshape it a little bit.
Okay.
Since this part is curved, I'm just going to use the sandpaper in my fingers to kind of finish it up.
Yeah. I can see that it's getting really shiny.
Yeah. So.
Just commenting off camera a minute ago that I didn't realize how much metal is on that fuel tank. That's really all it is, huh?
Yeah. It's, like I said, that's where the engine gets all its weight. Yeah. So I don't really I know some people, I don't know. I don't like putting the speakers in the fuel tank anyway. I think it's a lousy location for it because I think it sounds better with the speaker up top, and then you can use this space for weight because really, unless you want the engine to be top heavy, it's better to have the weight down the bottom. So one of the things I don't like about these fuel tanks is that the ends are a little bit angled inward. They kind of are. At the top it's bigger than it is at the bottom. It really should be straight up and down. And I also like to put end caps on them because that's the real EMD tanks have an end piece on each end that sticks out a little bit from the body of the tank. Okay. So I usually use a piece of 010 styrene. Oh,
you just cut it to shape kind of?
Cut it to shape. But before I can do that, I need to fix the shape of the fuel tank. Yeah. So
that's weird. I wonder why they do it that way. That's so...
I don't know. It's just the way they're made. But
maybe somebody made a mold a long time ago and they just never fixed it or something.
Yeah. What I'm going to do first is I'm going to use a motor tool to cut off these little cast-on mounting things. And I'll eventually replace those with some aftermarket fuel tank mounts. And then what I'm going to do is take a file and just work the end of the tank until it's straight up and down.
Okay.
So... Okay, so I've squared up the ends of the fuel tank. Now, I just did this by eye, basically, and then I checked it with a square, and it's pretty close.
Okay.
Close enough for government work, I guess.
Yeah, no, I'm looking at it, and it looks like it's a lot less tapered than it was before.
Yeah, it just took a few minutes of filing on both ends. Now, if you look at the ends, you can see that there's still some paint in the middle. That's okay because, like I said before, I'm going to put end caps on this anyway, so that's not going to be seen. Also, this is on the bottom of the locomotive in the middle, and honestly, when it's rolling down the track, you wouldn't see it anyway, really.
Yeah, but with the caps on, it won't matter because you definitely won't see it with caps on it.
Right. So that's the kind of thing that I usually typically do to an Athearn Blue Box SD40-2 frame. Attention to the fuel tank area, cutting off the mounting pins if it's old enough to have those, and filing the coupler pads until the coupler is at the right height.
So is that pretty much it then? You just go about your regular detailing and you're done?
Yeah. The only other thing is if you were modeling like a Milwaukee Road unit that had the shorter fuel tank, you might have to that might be the time to break out the hacksaw and actually cut the tank. You know, you'd have to figure out where to cut it. And
I'd be really careful. You cut too much, you're going to be,
Yeah, you don't want to do that. But I'm not modeling that. I don't know what this one will be. Probably Union Pacific or something like that, or Santa Fe, but or maybe BN. But anyway, in any case, this is kind of all basic stuff that I would do to any blue box to ready the frame for more detailing and stuff later.
Okay. Well, I guess that'll do it for this video podcast. So hopefully that answered the question of whoever it was that asked it.
Yeah, and if not, we can always come back and try to address it again at some point.
I suppose so. See, you asked a question. Here's your guy.
Yeah.
Right? All right, so we'll be back on November 1st with our next video podcast. Guess that's it, Dan. We'll catch everybody next time.
Yeah, see you later.